Solway. All right, guys, we're going to take a look at what indirect statements do when they begin in the past. Every indirect statement you've done so far begins in the present. So the example here, Perseus said that he killed Medusa, works a little bit differently. You guys are used to Perseus says. So let's review infinitive forms because they're pretty important to this type of sentence. We're going to use the verb to kill, which, of course, it's Latin. We're going to do that in a lot of these sentences. It's first conjugation, so as simple of a verb as you can get. Remember, present tense would be necare. You take that E to make it an I, and it makes it passive, to be killed. And then you take the third principal part. You add SSE, to have killed. You take the fourth principal part, you add the verb to be, se, and you make it passive, to have been killed. And then the future, you take the fourth principal part, you add the UR with the verb to be, and then to be about to kill. And there is a future passive, but you're never going to see it, so it's not important. Now we know these are the infinitive forms of to kill, but in an indirect statement, they just translate to their tense and their voice. So they just translate like a present tense verb or a present passive verb or whatever. All right, so we're going to work with sentences that start in the past, okay, like Perseus said. And we already know how to do that in Latin, but let's just recap it. There's two ways to do the past. You can do imperfect or perfect, but perfect is really the most common. If you ever read Latin literature, which you will, read Authentic Latin and Latin 3, the perfect tense is the most commonly used tense. So translates as has or have, or just simple past, like said. Okay, you take the third principal part of the verb, and you add these endings. And what's nice about the perfect tense is that it doesn't matter what conjugation the verb is. You just take whatever the third principal part is, and you add these endings to it. So we're going to take a look at the verb to say. A lot of indirect statements start with the verb to say, and the third principal part is dixi. Now, every third principal part of any verb in Latin is listed with the I ending on it, and that's this I ending right here. So just real quick, conjugate this, dixi, and it would be I said. Okay, I could say I have said, but that's fine. Dixisti, you have said, or just you said. And, we're stemming off that third principal part, which is what the perfect tense does. Okay, also the pluperfect. Okay, he, be thorough here. He, she, it said. All right, and then the first person plural. We said, and sorry. Same here. All right, still using the same stem, and that's why you study principal parts. It's not just to torture Latin students. It is because they can be very different, especially in the third conjugation, which you can tell this verb is. It's E without the long mark. Third principal parts, they tend to get a little crazy. All right, so dixerant, and that would be they said. Okay, so that's the verb tense we learned in Latin 1. Just a good review because we'll see a lot of sentences that begin with the past. Fix that. All right. So let's review what we know about indirect statements so far. Like I said, we've always seen them in the present tense. They begin in the present, and I tried to hammer that home. So I'll give you 3 examples here. Okay, they all begin the same way, and then they change the infinitive, which changes the direct statement that's talked about. So let's translate. Perseus dicit. Perseus, by the way, this is in honor of the fact that Disney Plus is going to cover the Percy Jackson series, which for some of you guys are fans of that, or any fan of mythology should be excited about that. All right, so Perseus says that now Nakare, all you got to do is look at that. And so let's go back. Oop. Oh boy, I don't know what I did there. Nakare is the present tense of the infinitive. So we want to translate it in the present tense. Perseus says that he kills Medusa. It doesn't sound right. He is killing, you could say. Of course, Medusa was the monster with the snake hair that he killed. And the second example, same beginning. So Perseus says that he, and then once again, say repeats the subject. So it would be he. We insert the that. And now we have the perfect infinitive or the past tense infinitive. All right, that's right here. It's just doesn't matter that by itself it can translate as to have killed, but in this type of sentence it cannot translate that way. It's just going to be like a perfect tense verb. That he simply killed Medusa, or you could say has killed, but it's fine. All right, and then section C here, this is the big thing you want to look for that a lot of you guys are missing. If you see that you have to realize that you're in the future. So any translation should be future. Perseus says that he will kill Medusa. Now, I know it's confusing because in the chart you say to be about to be. But that's literally what you're dealing with here. You're dealing with SE, which is to be, and then you're dealing with this UR form, which if you remember our lessons on participles means about to. So, all right. All right. So Perseus says that he will kill Medusa. Not Perseus says he will be about to kill Medusa. That's just not how we speak in English. So Perseus says that he will kill Medusa. All right. So it all makes sense. All right. Present infinitive. Present translation. He kills. Past infinitive. Past translation. Future infinitive. Future translation. Okay, but everything gets a little crazy when you begin. Oh boy. In the past. All right, so the whole purpose of this lesson is what happens when you begin in the past. So we already talked earlier that Dixit would be the perfect tense of Dico. Okay, that X, you see it in a lot of verbs. It's a pretty big giveaway that you're dealing with a third principal part. Just scroll back to Dico here. And if you're dealing with a third principal part of a verb, probably in the past. Okay, that's what that third principal part is used for. It's used for creating the past tense. All right, so so instead of Perseus says, dicit is the present tense. It stems from the first principal part. Let's take a look at what happens. All right, and this is a lot of build up to the point of this lesson. Perseus said. All right, now Perseus said. Now Nakare is still used, just like it's used up here. So you might say, well, okay, it should be Perseus said that he kills Medusa. But no, the present infinitive is used to keep everything the same time. So Perseus said, and so since said is in the past, everything needs to be in the past. So Perseus said that he, which is all from the say here, and that is assumed, Perseus said that he killed Medusa. We cannot say he kills Medusa because we started in the past. So everything has to be in the past. It's all the infinitive is happening at the same time as the main verb, and the main verb is in the past. So everything's in the past. Perseus said that he killed Medusa. And that right here is the hardest thing. I mean, you can argue it's the hardest thing you would learn in Latin. That's the present tense infinitive, which I wrote over here. But it translates in the past to keep at the same time as the sentence, which is Perseus said. Like the whole sentence is in the past. So obviously you want the present infinitive to keep it the same in the same time period. Perseus said that he killed Medusa. So it all is happening at the same time. Okay? Now, if you're still following me, I know it's tough. Perseus said, okay, same intro here, that he, okay, the say means that he. Now we've used the past infinitive. Okay? So Perseus said that he, and just to make sure you know, that is the perfect infinitive. Okay, normally to have killed, but in this type of sentence, that's not what Latin does, or it's not what we do in English. All right, so sorry for the scrolling. Perseus said that he, so we already said he killed, like the present tense explains that it's the same time. But the perfect tense means that it happened before. So how do you say more before? That's the old pluperfect. That he had killed Medusa. And this is something I like to call the super past. It's when you start in the past, you throw a past tense infinitive, and that creates had. Had is always used to express in English the furthest back in the past you can go. So Perseus said that he had killed Medusa. Like he had done it before. It's the furthest back in the past. And that's what I like to call the super past. Now, this scenario you don't see very often. We're going to start with Perseus said that he, okay? And then the only thing different here is we're using the future infinitive. Now, normally future, you think will. And, you know, people say in English, you should do this. Perseus said that he would kill. Because you're referring to something that happened in the past, expressing something that hasn't happened yet, and none of that makes sense. But just know that if you start in the past and go to the future, it translates as would. And that's a pretty unique translation for that. All right, so I'll obviously upload these notes. This will turn into an ed puzzle that you will answer questions to. But indirect statements essentially translate in 6 different ways. 3 ways with when you begin in the present tense, and 3 ways when you begin in the past tense. And knowing that had and would exist and this one are pretty tricky. So I hope you followed me on this. I'm sure that some of you or most of you did not. This is easily one of the harder things we do in Latin too. But we'll work on this and hopefully wrap up the year on a good note. All right. Let me see, guys, and I will hopefully See you live soon. Okay. All right. Bye.